The Nintendo GameCube. Nintendo's contribution to the sixth generation of consoles. Released in North America on November 18th of 2001, it was heavily criticized for its boxy, toyish look and lack of third-party support. Discontinued in 2007, the GameCube sold almost 22 million units worldwide, ranking third behind the PS2 and Xbox. In 2003, the GameCube tied the Xbox, owning 13% of the market share.
What's up YouTube, Raven Gamer again. I'm going to be taking apart my GameCube today. It stopped working, well actually I don't know when it stopped working. I plugged it in about 6 months ago and I would see the title screen but it wouldn't actually read the disc. I don't even think it's actually even spinning the disc, so I think there's something wrong with the laser on the disk drive. Now I'm not going to actually be taking the disk drive apart, I'm going to do that at a later date, but I've been meaning to clean the system up, so I'm going to do that. My other GameCube works just fine, so I'm not too worried about it. Plus, you know, I have my Wii, so I can play my GameCube games on that if I actually have to. Now, we're going to be needing our 4.5mm security bit for the screws. Might need a Phillips bit as well. I'm not really sure on that. I won't know until I open it up. I don't think we're going to need our tri-wing screwdriver, so first thing we're going to need to do is remove these covers. We're going to set those aside, and those will eventually clean those and clean these ports. So once we get those off, there are 4 screws, 4 of the 4.5mm security screws, recessed pretty far down into the GameCube, and just going to remove those. Okay, we've got the screws out. And we're going to set these to the side. Now, the GameCube is a very complicated system in that there's a lot of screws in it, and a lot of different screws in it. So, I mean, everybody has their own little, their own way of organizing their. Okay, once you have those 4 screws out, the top housing of the GameCube will come right out. Now, underneath, you can see you can remove some pieces further. You have, you know, the door opening mechanism as well as this back handle that you can take off, but I don't think we need to do that. Most of what needs cleaned, it's easily accessible, so we're going to set that aside. Now what you see here is the disk drive portion of the GameCube. It was developed by Panasonic and it uses a mini DVD optical disc format. The discs for the GameCube can store up to 1.56 gigabytes of data, which is really small compared to the Xbox and the PS2 at the time, which can store up to 8.56 gigabytes. Okay, next you're going to need a pretty small Phillips head, and if you can see down here, along the front portion of the GameCube, the controller ports, there's 4 Phillips head screws in here, very tiny ones, and we're going to need to get those out to remove the controller ports. Okay, we've got those 4 screws out, and then you just lift up on this front piece. It comes right out, and we have this ribbon. Just pull gently and it'll pop right out, and then you can set this piece to the side. Okay, next thing you want to do is you want to pull off this back portion right here of the GameCube, and that comes off pretty easily as well, and we're going to set that to the side. Okay, now there are 2 Phillips screws right on this fan that I've already removed, one here and one here, and we're going to take that fan unit off. First you need to unplug it right from the unplug its power supply, which is this cable right here. Pull up on it, it comes right out. After you do that, fan unit comes right off. We're not going to disassemble this any further. You can take the actual fan itself apart if you remove these screws, but I'm just going to get what I can probably clean on this. This is disgusting. That's awful. Okay, we've got the fan off, and now we're going to actually remove the disk drive itself. Now, there's quite a few Phillips screws holding this disk drive onto the rest of the GameCube, and you have to remove every one of those screws and to get the disk drive off. So we're going to do that, and then that'll let us see the heatsink and the main board of the system. Okay, we've got all the screws out from the disk drive's mount, and the disk drive will pull right up. As you can see, there's not much going on the underside. This plug is where the disk drive attaches to the main board right there. We're going to set that to the side. Like I said, we're not going to disassemble the disk drive any further. I'm going to do that at a later date, just because I need to focus to try to figure out why it's not reading disks. Now right here we have the heatsink for the GameCube. Again, more screws. So we're going to remove those, and then that'll let us see the main board. Okay, so we removed the heatsink, and it took a little. It was difficult. I wasn't aware of this, but there's actually a putty substance on the underside of the heatsink that attaches it to the main board. But after just some gentle wiggling back and forth, it did come off, and it'll probably. It's putty. Like literally, it is putty, so I imagine it will reattach pretty easily. So here's the underside of the GameCube. I don't think I'm going to take that apart any further than that, but if I wanted to, it looks like there's probably only 2 screws holding that down. I may do it. There's not much underneath of that. There's a little tiny board for your power supply, but I don't really see much necessity in cleaning that up, so set that to the side. Now here we have the main board. If I can get it here. Right here we have the CPU, which is an IBM Power PC. It's codenamed Gecko. It's a 32-bit RIC chip and runs at 485 megahertz. This right here is the graphics, the GPU, the graphics chip slash the sound chip. It also handles the sound. It was developed by ArtX, which later became ATI. It was codenamed, or it is named, Flipper, and it runs at 162 megahertz. Now the sound processor portion runs at 81 megahertz, and ATI or RX was the same people who made the GPU for the Nintendo 64. Right here you have the audio RAM and your system RAM right here. Now the main board, you don't want to get it wet in any way. No alcohol, no nothing. What you want to do is hopefully it's not extremely dirty, but just use a dry cotton swab on this. Now for stuff like connection pins on your cartridges, people use alcohol. Like I said, the problem with alcohol is, depending on the kind of alcohol you get, it can leave a film, and if you have a lot of corrosion, denatured alcohol works best because it's used as a solvent. It is toxic though, so just make sure you don't get any in your mouth, or drink it, or whatever. There's better ways to get drunk. But anyway, we don't need to clean any connection pins or anything, so we might it looks pretty clean, so I'm probably not going to touch the main board. There is a lot of corrosion on this system though, and it makes me wonder if it will work, period. No matter what I do to it. Never really seen this much corrosion on a system before, but what we're going to do is, mainly for the plastic pieces, we're going to use either alcohol if there's a little bit of metal, there's a lot of corrosion on some of this, so I am going to try alcohol on this, but I don't think we're going to get all that off. So mainly we're just going to clean off the plastic and what we can get of the metal. For the metal, I'll probably use alcohol because I don't want, I just have to make sure I get it dry so it doesn't corrode any further. But for the plastic, I'm probably going to use Windex or some type of window cleaner to get that clean. And I don't know, hopefully it'll make an improvement in work, but okay, well, we did the best we could as far as cleaning it went, and it does look a lot better. I did remove the metal piece off of the base, and I'm glad I did because it was just a mess. There's really not much of anything under here since I don't have the Game Boy Advance, base add-on for this. This is pretty empty, so I just removed the metal pieces and rinsed it under some water and let it dry. And now all we need to do is put it back together. So we're going to start with this base, and we'll put this on. There's 2 Phillips screws go right in there. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to replace the main board. And the main board, if you remember, was only held on by this heatsink. So we're going to try to replace the heatsink and make sure that it's lined up with the screw holes. And once we have that aligned, we're going to replace the screws for the heatsink. There should be 6 of these. Okay, now after we've put the heatsink on, we're going to replace the disk drive itself back onto the rest of the GameCube and replace the screws. Okay, we've got the main body on. Next, we're going to put on the controller port. But before we do that, and the fan. But before we do that, we're going to reattach these 2 pieces that we pulled off right here. And we're doing that now because if we get the controller port on first, then it's going to make things a little difficult to get that screw in there unless you have a magnetic screwdriver. So just for ease, we're just going to put this in now. Okay, the next thing we have to do is we have to put the fan back on. And right here. Go ahead and get the screws in just to hold it in place. And the other screw is right back here. Okay, then we have to reattach power supply and fan wire. And next we're going to reattach the controller port. First we need to hook in the ribbon. Just latch this to this piece right down here. Make sure it's in. Once you got the ribbon in, it should look like that. And then we're just going to slide this piece right back on. Clicks into place. Reattach our back part. And then put the housing back on. Okay, we're almost finished. Now all we need is our 4.5 millimeter security screwdriver again, and we're going to replace the initial 4 security screws back into the system. Okay, so we've got it put back together, and as you can see, it's a lot cleaner than it was, but I still have to test it out and see if it'll work. I'm not getting my hopes up though, but it was a lot of fun to take apart and clean, just very time consuming. Feel free to subscribe if you like this video, then please hit the like button, and I am the Raven Gamer.